listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky Duraeus. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Rick right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review Monday Night Raw from May 15th, 2023. We got a lot of things to talk about right here on the Raw review. Of course, we are on the road to Night of Champions, in which we will see AJ Styles going up against Seth Rollins in the finals of the World Heavyweight Championship Tournament. It's going to be a fucking banger ass of a match, man. The match is going to be absolutely insane because I talked about this before, but if there's any indication on what they did back in Money in the Bank in 2019, these guys are going to tear the absolute house down. But we're going to be talking about Monday Night Raw. There are a lot of other things that we need to talk about, of course. We had Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn on the show. We had a Becky Lynch segment. We also had Dominik Mysterio wrestling Xavier Woods. Cody Rhodes is on the show as well. We had a match between Raquel Rodriguez and Chelsea Green. And of course, we had the main event with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn taking on Finn Balor and Damian Priest. And the biggest question to ask ourselves is, what is WWE doing with J.D. McDonough? Looks like there's going to be big plans for J.D. McDonough, as we have seen in the Battle Royal on Raw this week. But overall, thoughts on the show. I thought this was a fine show. I mean, the show is mad long. It's 3 hours long. Honestly, it's a pain in the ass to watch just because of the fact that the show is 3 hours. But that is not to say almost everything on the show was bad. There was actually some good moments on the show that I enjoyed. A lot of things actually that I enjoyed. There were some other things that I didn't enjoy. That's mostly the case with Raw in most weeks. In other weeks, the show is just flat out boring, and I just don't give a shit about what happens at all because of the fact the show is 3 hours. Every time I come on the Raw review, I say the exact same thing because it is absolutely true, man. The fact that Raw is 3 hours, I don't know, man. It's just a pain in the ass to sit through a whole 3 hours for wrestling. But nonetheless, let's get on with the Raw review. Before I get on with the Raw review, make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the frickin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Also, the WrestleHavoc Podcast is also available on audio platforms. It is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys want to listen to the WrestleHavoc Podcast in audio format, it is available on all of those platforms. Also, if you guys haven't checked it out already, it is up now on the channel. My AEW Dynamite review is up. We talk about Hangman Page returning and helping the Elite against the Blackpool Combat Club. We talk about a lot of things on the show. Of course, we talk about the supposed announcement that Tony Khan had. Also, we talk about all the great matches that we had. We had matches like Roosh versus Jungle Boy, which is fucking insane. Roderick Strong wrestling Chris Jericho in a Falls Count Anywhere match. A lot of shit went down on AEW Dynamite. So if you guys haven't checked out the AEW Dynamite review, the link will be in the description below. All right, let's get on with the Monday Night Raw review. Overall thoughts, as I've stated, there was a lot of good. There was some bad on the show that I didn't really enjoy, but nonetheless, it was a fine show. The show kicks off with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Greensboro, says Sami Zayn. He has a lot to say. Talks about how he is excited, and they found out on Friday that they were surprised that at Night of Champions they will be defending their undisputed tag team championships against Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns. On paper, that is as big of a threat, but they do not see it as a threat. They see it as a gift. They got a chance at revenge at Roman Reigns. Kevin Owens should have beaten Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble, and he knows at the Elimination Chamber he should have beaten Roman Reigns. He has cheated throughout his whole title reign, and at Night of Champions, they will check Roman, and he talks about how they're going to check Roman Reigns, and this is the problem with Roman. He doesn't know when to stop. These days, Roman says he tries to make sure that everything happens all by himself, but he's pushing the Usos too hard, and it's not enough for Roman. It isn't enough to be champion for over 1,000 days. Now he wants to be the undisputed tag team champions. Roman, you psycho, you want these titles, you can't have them. Then what happens? We get the Judgment Day coming out. Kevin Owens gets pissed off, and he says, he's sick of he's so mad because it's all about the bloodline. They ain't here to hang out. You want to fight? Let's fight. Sami says, let's give it time. And Kevin Owens is up here right now. They do not know why they are out here. Maybe they're not here to fight. Let's hear him out. And then what happens is Judgment Day is about to speak. The floor is yours. Damian says he's spot on. He'd love to fight, but then what happens? Balor blocks him. Balor says they came to wish them the best of luck against Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns. Last week, they said that they're done with the bloodline, but they're right back to where they started. But if by the same miracle they actually do win, there will be a line of superstars, and the line starts here. Rhea then says that, didn't you forget? The Judgment Day runs Monday Night Raw. Then Sami Zayn says he'd love to say what Dom has to say. And, what happens is basically Dom is about to speak, and there's just fucking loud boos with Dominik. They're not even letting Dominik speak, which is hilarious. And Kevin Owens says, you want him to punch him in the face, or I want him to punch him in the face already. And, Sami's like, why not? And what happens is they're about to go after Dominik, but then what happens is Rhea blocks Dominik. And then Damian comes in out of nowhere and hits a cheap shot on Sami Zayn. And then what happens is the Judgment Day managed to take out Kevin Owens, but then Sami Zayn comes in for the save with a chair, in which the Judgment Day ends up retreating. Overall thoughts on this opening segment. This was a great opening segment to kick off the show, in my opinion. Definitely, of course, we are on the road to Night of Champions, and we got Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn going to wrestle Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa instead of the Usos, which is a very interesting storyline progression. I know a lot of people do not like that decision made, which I would understand from that perspective, but if you really look at it long term, it kind of does make sense regarding the storyline element of it. But I will say this. I don't think I'm for Roman Reigns holding 4 belts. I think it's a little overkill for them to do that. But we're going to have to wait and see what they do. It's going to be very interesting as we head towards Night of Champions. Now, with this whole Judgment Day thing, I mean, a lot of people were very confused with Judgment Day coming out. Meanwhile, you have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn still feuding with the Bloodline. Why is Judgment Day out there? I feel like this is something to plant the seeds for the future after Night of Champions, because if there's any indication, I mean, there could possibly be a scenario in which Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn end up beating Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. But let's be honest with ourselves. If Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa are going to be losing that tag team match, there's no fucking way that Roman Reigns is going to get pinned. Absolutely no fucking way. But we're going to have to wait and see. Could this be a scenario in which Judgment Day end up feuding with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn after? We're just going to have to wait and see, but very interesting developments happening in the opening of Raw. In the opening match of the evening, we got Shinsuke Nakamura versus The Miz, a match nobody gives a fuck about. Miz offers a handshake to Shinsuke Nakamura. We get a kick by Nakamura. We get repeated kicks and knee strikes by Shinsuke. We then get a drop kick by Nakamura, but then he drives his knee onto The Miz. Miz then ends up hitting a boot, but then at this point, Miz is in control. Miz then gets sent into the corner. We then get a sliding kick by Shinsuke Nakamura, but then Shinsuke runs into a knee by Miz, or on Miz, I should say. And then he drives his knee across the back of the neck of Miz, and then Shinsuke sends Miz back into the ring. We get a kick by Miz. At this point, Miz is on the apron, and then he hits a neckbreaker across the middle rope. Miz then hits a kick on Shinsuke Nakamura, and then once we're back from commercial break, both men continue to fight it out. Shinsuke then runs and hits a knee strike once again. We then get a cover by The Miz and a kick out. At this point, Miz goes for a roll-up and we get a near fall. Nakamura then applies the armbar, but then Miz goes for the roll-up again. We then get a near fall. Miz goes for the DDT, and then we get a cover into near fall again, but then we get a bunch of yes kicks by The Miz. After that, Shinsuke goes for the roll-up, and then he misses the kick, but then he goes for the spinning kick. After that, we get a cover into near fall. Shinsuke then picks him up. Miz lands on his feet, and then he misses the skull-crushing finale attempt. And then Miz runs the ropes, and then Shinsuke ends up hitting the sliding German suplex on Miz. He sets up the Kinshasa, but then Miz retreats. Miz goes for a slap onto the eyes of Shinsuke Nakamura, but then after that, Miz ends up going for the cover, and then we get a near fall, but then after that, Nakamura goes to the bottom rope. Shinsuke ends up going for the inside cradle, but then what happens is after that near fall, Shinsuke catches Miz and ends up hitting the Kinshasa, and we get a cover, and Shinsuke Nakamura ends up getting the win over the Miz. Overall thoughts on this match, again, I wasn't really that big of a fan of what WWE was doing with The Miz and Shinsuke Nakamura. You know, a lot of people tend to say, oh, the Miz slander should stop, but it's not really slandering Miz. It's really the slandering of the creative direction of Miz and as well as Shinsuke Nakamura. I genuinely believe, I feel like Miz is not at the level where he should be. I think Miz should be taken much more seriously, in my opinion. Like, for example, Miz was taken super seriously back in 2016 when he was the Intercontinental Champion. That was, in my opinion, the last time Miz was very, very, very relevant. That is not to say now Miz is not a bad wrestler. People tend to have this notion that every time when I talk about The Miz or any other podcaster talks negatively about The Miz, they immediately think he's a bad wrestler. He is not a bad wrestler. What we're trying to say is the direction for The Miz is pure comedy, and nobody wants that with The Miz. Everybody knows the caliber of the talent that Miz is. I honestly believe that right now, I feel like every time when you pair somebody up with The Miz, I feel like it's just, it's a scenario in which nobody gives a shit. Like, I remember when they had Seth Rollins wrestle The Miz a couple of weeks ago on Raw, and I believe this was before they unveiled the World Heavyweight title. Let's be realistic with ourselves. When Seth Rollins wrestled The Miz, yes, the match was great, but when they first announced that match, you were like, is that really the best you got for Seth Rollins? I mean, really, out of all fucking people you have Seth Rollins wrestle with, you have him wrestle with The Miz. Again, I want to repeat myself. This is nothing personal against The Miz. We all think he's a fantastic wrestler. He's a fantastic promo. He knows what he's doing. He's great. He's a great talent. But again, it's just now I feel like The Miz is just not treated seriously, and I feel like he's treated more as a comedy act instead of a serious wrestler. And I honestly feel like WWE should really take The Miz more seriously. That's just my opinion. And this whole thing with Shinsuke Nakamura is just fucking stupid. We get Raquel Rodriguez and Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green backstage with Adam Pearce. We come to find out that Liv Morgan is injured. The championship match tonight is postponed, but Raquel says she is not injured and she is not medically cleared. Or I should say, Raquel says that Liv is not injured. She's not medically cleared. Then the heels get pissed, and then Raquel says she wants to defend Liv's honor, and she wants a match with Chelsea Green, so we end up getting that match. We then get the first of 3 video packages of Seth Rollins, and by the way, these were very well done video packages of Seth Rollins. After that, we have Gunther in action, making his Raw debut. Technically his Raw debut. I believe he made an appearance on Raw back in 2019. I think it was late 2019 when he was Walter at the time, and he was the current NXT UK champion, or WWE UK champion. I completely forgot. But he's in action. He stands onto the announce table, and Ludwig Kaiser makes the introduction. After that, Gunther gets the microphone, and he says, perhaps an introduction is due. For almost a year, he dominated Friday Night SmackDown as the undefeated and longest reigning Intercontinental Champion, Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, as he says, in the modern era. But from this day forth, he will continue his mission right here on Monday Night Raw. No man here at Raw has been identified as the next challenger for his great prize and earned his respect, I should say. One man can achieve both. Tonight, this Battle Royal will determine his next challenger for his championship against him at Night of Champions. So we have this Battle Royal to determine the number 1 contender for Gunther's Intercontinental Championship at Night of Champions. So some of the people that are in this match, we got Bronson Reed, Ricochet, a returning Apollo Crews who had a stint in NXT, as well as Matt Riddle. So the match starts. Baron Corbin ends up eliminating Akira Tozawa. Dexter Lumis eliminates Corbin. Masay and Maswa end up eliminating Dexter Lumis, but what happens is Alpha Academy eliminate both members of the Maximum Male Models. But what happens is Mansois holds on. Masay holds on to Mansois, but then he stares at Lumis and he ends up dropping him. A little bit of comedy right there. After that, J.D. McDonough ends up getting eliminated by Dolph Ziggler. Now keep that in mind. J.D. McDonough, there's a lot of big plans for JD McDonough. Dolph Ziggler ends up getting eliminated by Von Wagner. Yes, Von Wagner from NXT, who actually got called up in the draft last week. Then outside of the ring, JD McDonough ends up attacking Dolph Ziggler and sends him repeatedly to the steel steps. So right there off the gate, they are going to be doing something. They are planning JD McDonough to really do something very interesting in the main roster in the future. A lot of people are saying that JD McDonough could be the newest member of Judgment Day. And if that is the case, sign me the fuck up. What happens after that? Once we're back from commercial break, Cedric Alexander ends up getting eliminated by both members of the Viking Raiders. After that, they gang up on Zion Quinn. After that, they eliminate him. Shelton Benjamin ends up getting eliminated by the Raiders as well, but then the Raiders face off with both members of Alpha Academy. Eric is on the apron. He picks up Gable, but then Gable escapes. He applies a waistlock, and then Otis and Ivar fight it out. Bronson Reed eliminated both of them. Later on, Matt Riddle is just on fucking fire. We got a shoulder tackle by Riddick Moss. He used to be Madcap Moss, but then they reverted him back to Riddick Moss. So Riddick Moss is now Riddick Moss, and we get a shoulder tackle by Riddick Moss, but then he ends up getting eliminated. We then get a spinning kick by Johnny Gargano. We then get the head scissors by Riddle, eliminating Gargano, but then Kaiser and Vinci enter the fray and attack Matt Riddle. After that, he tackles him to elimination. Ricochet ends up fighting off Bronson Reed. Ricochet and Ali try to eliminate Bronson Reed, but then Bronson Reed is on the apron. We get a drop kick by Ricochet. We then get a springboard drop kick on Reed, but then he holds on. Reed picks him up, but then Mustafa Ali hits a drop kick on both men, which leads to Mustafa Ali ending up to win the match. And he will now face Gunther at Night of Champions for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, initially I thought, of all people, Mustafa Ali is going to be wrestling Gunther at Night of Champions. But then I came to the realization that isn't this what we all wanted with Mustafa Ali? So you can't really get mad at that. Honestly, we all wanted them to do much better with Mustafa Ali. And ever since Triple H took over, they really try to have more of a focus on Mustafa Ali. Now, granted, it's really a subjective opinion on what you think about this new character that Mustafa Ali has. I honestly believe there's some bit of potential when it comes to Mustafa Ali's new character, but him wrestling Gunther in Saudi Arabia, I mean, honestly, it's not really a bad idea. I think, Gunther is going to bring the best out of Mustafa Ali, and I think Mustafa Ali is going to bring out the best of Gunther. I think that's basically the whole notion of this match, and honestly, it's going to be a banker. Now, I'm not going to sit here and immediately say that Mustafa Ali is going to dethrone Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. Let's be honest with ourselves. That is not going to happen. Absolutely not. That is not going to happen whatsoever. But I will say, after the match that he's going to be having with Gunther for the IC title at Night of Champions, Ali is going to be looked at as a much stronger figure ever since, he would wrestle Gunther. He's going to come out much stronger in the end, if that makes any sense. But overall, this Battle Royal was all right. And Mustafa Ali getting the win, not a bad idea. After that, we got a Becky Lynch segment. She cuts a promo. The man has come around to Greensboro, North Carolina. She talked about how being the man is admitting when you're going through some stuff. We all have our struggles behind closed doors, and we put the face that we need to become the people that we want to be. And sometimes, when it becomes too overwhelming, we have to man up and ask for help. She asked for help from two legends in the business, Lita and Trish Stratus. And Lita was great, and she came back and won gold with her. Trish came back, and it looked like she hasn't skipped a beat. After that, she was so clouded in her judgment that she saw the snake. Trish never came back to help her. She came back to help herself like the backstabbing egomaniac that she is. Despite all that, she wanted to say, "Thank you, Trish." But for all the reasons that she gave, thank you, Trish, because when she hit her, she lit a fire that has been away for many months. And when she called her daughter stupid, she reminded her that she gave all the badness in her head a face, a name, and a target. And at one stage, she was number one in the business, and she is it, and she's done it. Is it? And she doesn't need a championship to prove it. She's got it. and she will show her how thankful she is when she kicks her head at Night of Champions. Overall thoughts on this Becky Lynch promo. Not a bad promo whatsoever. Definitely so much better than the promo that Trish Stratus cut a couple of weeks prior on Raw. That Trish Stratus promo was dog shit, especially last week. I mean, I don't know about y'all, and look, I like Trish Stratus, but Jesus Christ, the lines that they gave this woman were not so good at all. It felt forced and it felt manufactured. With Becky Lynch, every time when she cuts a promo, to an extent you can definitely see that it is kind of manufactured. But really, whenever Becky Lynch speaks on the microphone, you get realism, and that's what Becky Lynch is. And overall, this promo was 10 times better than the promo that Trish Stratus gave weeks prior on Raw. And it looks like they're going to be having a match at Night of Champions. Which, honestly, am I really excited about? Nah, not really. We get a backstage interview with Rhea Ripley. Natalya comes in, she puts her over, and she talks about how she deserves nothing but respect. And then Rhea says, we all know why she came out, and if she comes out again, she will end her career. And then Dominik comes in, and they both hold hands. Okay. Natalya being a feud with Rhea Ripley. Sorry. I think that's a bad idea. It's not to say Natalya's a bad wrestler. It's just, who cares about Natalya at this day and age? Nobody cares about Natalya at this day and age. Natalya in 2023 is completely irrelevant. And I don't mean that in a personal way. I mean that just in the space of wrestling. That's it. Because I know a lot of fans tend to take this shit way too personal. But everything that I say on this show, do not take it personally. This is just my sole opinion. I genuinely believe Natalya is completely irrelevant in 2023. She just is. There's no direction whatsoever with Natalya. Nothing special about Natalya. That is not to say she's a bad wrestler. It's just no direction with Natalya whatsoever. And honestly, I think her being Rhea Ripley's next feud for SmackDown Women's Championship, I think, number one, that's a bad idea. And number two, we still haven't solved the issue of the fact that Rhea Ripley has the SmackDown Women's Championship on Raw and Bianca Belair having the Raw Women's Championship on SmackDown. It's like, bro, this brand split makes no fucking sense. That's just my opinion. After that, we got Dominik Mysterio versus Xavier Woods. Not a bad match. This match was set up since last week. We get an arm drag by Woods. We then get a shoulder tackle by Woods. After that, we get a chop by Woods, and then we get a running drop kick. We get a cover by Woods and a near fall. Dominik ends up regaining control and hits repeated stomps into the corner. Dominik then runs into a drop kick by Woods, but then Dominik fights back with repeated kicks. After that, Dominik gets caught. After that, we get a cover by Woods and a near fall. Dominik then runs to the outside, but then Rhea Ripley ends up protecting Dom from Xavier Woods. Dominik goes back into the ring. Once we're back from commercial break, we get repeated rights by Woods. Dominik ends up going for an uppercut, but then we get a cover by Dominik and a near fall. Dominik then takes Woods to the top. Dominik goes up to the second rope. We then get a headbutt by Woods. Woods ends up hitting a super dropkick off the top on Dominik, which looked fucking sick. We get an elbow by Woods. We get a cover into near fall. Woods goes for the back elbow, but then we clothesline. We get a clothesline by Woods. Then we get a rolling clothesline. Woods ends up hitting a boot, but then we get a clothesline by Woods on Dominik. We get a cover and a near fall. Dominik ends up regaining control. Dominik goes for the Three Amigos because we all know the heel that he is. We get a frog splash by Dominik, but then Woods counters it. Woods ends up dropping Dominik down. We get a cover into near fall again. Woods goes to the top, but then Dominik gets dragged onto the outside by Rhea Ripley. Dominik ends up going for the baseball slide, but then Rhea sends Woods into the ring. Then we get a roll up by Dominik, and then we get a cover, and Dominik Mysterio ends up getting the win. After that, we got a very good video package of J.D. McDonough. And actually, Kathy Kelly, I believe, interviews J.D. McDonough and talks about how his intentions on Monday Night Raw are. And during that backstage interview, we actually see Finn Balor literally in the top corner of our screens, literally just watching J.D. McDonough. So it looks like the seeds are starting to get planted for J.D. McDonough to enter Judgment Day, which honestly, J.D. McDonough being a part of Judgment Day is definitely the right decision to make. After that, Imperium run into KO and Sami Zayn. And after that, what happens is Kevin Owens screams that they will fight them all. After that, we get a Cody Rhodes segment. The crowd absolutely loves Cody Rhodes. So, Greensboro, North Carolina, what do you want to talk about? He knows these grounds and he knows this area. This is the very first fabled home of Starrcade. Wonderful memories, mutual respect. Respect that is not given by Brock, who has chosen not to be here. Have you heard about the Scorpion and the Frog? It's a very simple story, but the Scorpion is on one side, and he asks the Frog if he can get a ride on the other side of the river. He says he'd sting you, but they'd both drown. The Frog puts him on his back, and they walk, and he stings him. And he asks the Scorpion why. The Scorpion says it's his nature, and it's Brock Lesnar's nature to hunt. Brock Lesnar must be hunting, but make sure he's the one who's hunting. How is your face, Brock? Says Cody. He knows Brock looks in the mirror, he sees a lion, and he also sees a black eye and staples. He sees a man who puts them there and someone that broke his spirit. After that, he gladly accepts his challenge at Night of Champions, and he will not go out of bounds. There has been a talk about his ego and dates. You want to know why Brock is on top? Because he is better than 99% of the superstars who come in this ring. But at Backlash, Brock wasn't better than him. And he talks about how he called it a cheap win and a wrestling counter in the ring that still would have hunted him. You know, this ain't about a championship. This is about something else. Who is the big thing on Monday Night Raw? The next big thing. And they were right. But eventually, Brock, what happens when they say next? He's conquered WWE Sports Entertainment, and at this point, he needs to take his busted face because he isn't the big thing anymore, and he is simply in his way. Very good promo by Cody Rhodes. Am I still excited for this rematch at Night of Champions? Absolutely not. I don't even think we got a legit explanation as to why Brock Lesnar attacked Cody Rhodes on the Raw after WrestleMania. I mean, one bullshit reason that Wade Barrett gave was like, oh yeah, he wasn't main eventing WrestleMania, or like he didn't open the show. Like some bullshit like that. And I'm like, I believe the reason was he opened the show at WrestleMania. And I'm like, bro, if you look at Brock Lesnar's character, Brock Lesnar's the type of character that he doesn't really give a shit about anything but himself. Case in point, WrestleMania 35. Did Brock Lesnar have a problem when he where he opened the show against Seth Rollins? No, he didn't. So why all of a sudden he has a problem now? This feud makes no goddamn sense. Zoe Starks talking to Nikki Cross. Candice LeRae comes in and she challenges Zoe to a match next week. After that, we get Raquel Rodriguez versus Chelsea Green. Overall, really a nothing match. Nobody gives a crap. Raquel is in control. Sonya goes for the distraction. We then get a backstabber by Chelsea Green. Chelsea is in control, and then we get a clothesline into the corner. She hits repeated rights, and then she hits a chop block, that being Chelsea Green. After that, we get a cover engineer fall. Green ends up going for the side headlock. Then we get a drop kick by Chelsea Green, and then we get a cover engineer fall. Raquel then gets her up and drives Green onto the ropes. She hits repeated clotheslines by Raquel. After that, she hits another clothesline. She then ends up hitting a fall-away slam. She goes for a second, and then the third fall-away slam after that. She then hits the corkscrew elbow, and then we get a cover by Raquel, and she ends up winning the match. After that, Ronda and Shayna Baszler finally make their return and attack Raquel onto the stage. Ronda Rousey just continues to just talk all that shit in front of Raquel Rodriguez. Then Shayna ends up going for a knee strike, and both heels stand tall. Honestly, what are my thoughts on this? I'm still not interested in Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Yes, could they be a legit women's tag team? Yes, but honestly, at this point, who gives a shit about Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler? Nobody. There's, again, no direction when it comes to the women's tag team championships, and there's just no direction whatsoever regarding Ronda Rousey. Hopefully, could this be the situation in which they have actual direction? We do not know, but honestly, I have no hopes. After that, we get the main event. We get Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn taking on Finn Balor and Damian Priest. Overall, This was a great match to close the show, in my opinion. Both teams, I should say, absolutely delivered in what they were doing. And honestly, I don't think this is the end of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn against the Judgment Day. I feel like after Night of Champions, if Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn retain, which, I mean, honestly, there could be many different possibilities. We could walk into a scenario in which Roman and Solo end up beating Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. But the thing is if Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn end up dropping those titles, what are you going to be doing with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn? Plus, when it comes to the bloodline, again, I've always talked about this every week, there is a greater story to be told regarding the bloodline, and you could definitely tell that story with Roman and Solo losing those the opportunity. But we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, but let's get through with the match. Both lock up. We get a waist lock by Sami. We get a bunch of back and forth strikes by both men. Balor goes for the back elbow. We get a bunch of arm drags by Sami. At this point, Priest is the legal man, but then Priest goes for repeated shots onto the back of Sami Zayn. We then get a cover by Sami and a near fall, but then Kevin Owens tags himself in. We get a chop by Kevin Owens, and then we get repeated rights by Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens ends up going for the enziguri, but then Priest gets taken to the outside. Balor then goes to the outside, but then Rhea and Dominik end up coming out. Once we're back from commercial break, Balor is in control over Sami. We get a chop by Balor. We then get a clothesline by Sami, but at this point, the hot tag is made. After the hot tag was made, KO and Priest end up fighting it out. We get repeated stomps on Priest, and then we get a clothesline by KO, followed by a senton on Priest onto the outside. After that, Rhea tries to hit Kevin Owens, but she misses the clothesline. Kevin Owens then ends up taking out the Judgment Day on the outside. We get a kick by Kevin Owens. We get a cannonball into the corner by Kevin Owens, and then we get a cover into near fall. We then get a right hand by Kevin Owens, but then Dominik grabs the boot of Kevin Owens when he runs the ropes. After that, Rhea and Dominik gets kicked out by the referee. We then get a super kick by Kevin Owens on Priest, but then Woods ends up attacking Dominik onto the stage. We then get a roll up by Priest, but then Paul Heyman comes out, and this is very interesting stuff right here. Once we're back from commercial break, Priest and Kevin Owens fight it out. We get a boot by Kevin Owens. After that, we get a back elbow by Priest. We get a stomp by Balor. We get a double team attempt by both Priest and Balor. KO is on the top. Then we get a headbutt by Priest, but then KO fights off Priest. We then get a headbutt by Kevin Owens once again. Priest then gets taken down. Kevin Owens ends up going for the Swanton Bomb. At this point, the hot tag is made. Sami then goes after Balor, but then we get a takedown by Sami. We get a bunch of rights and lefts by Sami. Sami ends up going for the leapfrog. After that, Sami goes for the Michinoku driver, and we get a cover into near fall. Sami then drags Balor, but then what happens is Paul Heyman is talking to the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, on the phone. Balor ends up going for the sling blade later on, but then Sami ends up hitting the Blue Thunder Bomb. We get a cover into near fall. After that, Imperium shows up onto the outside. Of course, it looks like they're going to be wrestling next week. And then we get a roll-up by Balor. Balor then drops down Sami Zayn, and then we get a cover into near fall when Kevin Owens makes the save. Kevin Owens then counters the South of Heaven chokeslam, and then we get a stunner by Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens then gets taken to the outside. Sami ends up going for the exploder. Then he hits the haluva kick. But what happens is we get a cover, but Kaiser and Vinci end up on the apron. Kevin Owens then pushes Gunther. We get a chokeslam onto the apron. We get a somersault by Sami on Priest, but then Sami goes back into the ring. Vinci and Kaiser distract the referee. We get a dropkick by Balor. Balor goes to the top. He hits the coup de grace, and after that, we get a cover, and Judgment Day end up getting the win. So basically, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn end up losing via interference by Imperium. One of the things that I'm very much enjoying a lot about WWE television as a whole is I love all of the factions that we are having on television. We got factions like Imperium, the Bloodline, the LWO, all of those factions, man, definitely interest me a lot because I love the idea of gang warfare, but also I feel like it creates many different scenarios, and it really creates that unpredictability nature of what could happen. We had Paul Heyman in this match. We had Imperium. A lot of shit going down, and honestly, I'm a big fan of faction warfare, and especially the fact that we are having faction warfare in WWE makes things a whole lot more interesting. But yeah, man, that was the main event, and it was a great match overall to close off Raw. But overall thoughts on Monday Night Raw. I thought Raw this week was a fine show. There were things that were good. There were things that were really not so good and things that I really didn't care about on the show. But honestly, this wasn't a bad show whatsoever, to be quite honest with you. But again, the biggest issue with Raw, and it's a situation that's never going to end. It's just those 3 hours are completely unbearable to literally sit through because, again, there's not a lot of things, in my opinion, that are as compelling on Raw than, like, you know, for example, the Bloodline storyline. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the Bloodline shit happens on SmackDown, and that's why SmackDown is clearly the better show. But honestly, Raw, again, it's just a very difficult time to watch because of the fact that, again, the show is 3 hours. But nonetheless, Raw was a fine show overall. But yeah, that was my Raw review from May 15th, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications, and be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the friggin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, signing out. See you guys later.